Hero Siege is a blend of hack and slash action and dungeon crawling adventure. It combines fast-paced combat, deep character customization, and a wide array of loot to create an engaging experience for players. Whether you're a fan of intense solo play or enjoy collaborating with your friends, Hero Siege provides a compelling experience that will keep you coming back for more. With such a large number of new players, I felt it was time to start providing players a one-stop spot for detailed explanations of everything that you may come across in your adventures. So today, I present to you Graxy's Ultimate Beginner's Guide for Hero Siege 2 updated for Season 5. This video will serve as a platform for new and veteran players to quickly find information so they can get right back into the action, and I will be updating this video for every season going forward to make sure that this content is 100% up to date and accurate. A quick disclaimer, this is my very first version and I expect it to be somewhat incomplete, but I will re-upload this tutorial around Season 5 start date to capture any changes or additions. With your help, we will continue growing the knowledge base of the Hero Siege community and reduce gatekeeping of information that really should be publicly available. And as always, I will have timestamps available for ease of use as this video is going to be very long. Without further ado, let's get started. If you want to play Hero Siege both locally and online, you will have to have a Steam account. There is no client-side version. Simply load up the application Steam, click on the store up here, go to the search function, type in Hero Siege. That'll bring you to this page here where you can download and install the game. Once that's done, you can click on your library and you will find the game in there to launch. As a quick side note, you might notice that my videos and a lot of the players and the developing company, we all call this Hero Siege 2, even though technically in Steam, it's just regular Hero Siege. The reason for this is the game went through a massive rework about a year ago, and we all call it Hero Siege 2, but I think for certain reasons in Steam, they either weren't allowed to change the name just for contract reasons, or maybe because returning players coming back to the game, they didn't want people to think they were going to have to pay for another game whenever they just decided to rework the current one that they had. So that's the reason that you see regular Hero Siege here. Hero Siege 1, Hero Siege 2, it is the exact same thing in Steam. Once loaded up into the game here, we have two options, either play locally or play online. If you want to play online, you will have to register an account. I'll show you that here in a second. If you want to play on a local, you do not need an account for this. So we're going to go ahead and click on play online. Once here, you'll see that you have to put a username and password in. We don't have one yet, so we're just going to click on register. You'll type in a username, passwords, put your email in, all that sort of thing, select your login region. Once you register, you will have to verify your email. After registering your email, you'll simply just type in your username and password and click on login. If you're a returning player and you just want to use that account, you can do that. You will need to click on this login region here and log in to Europe 1. That's where your account is currently. That will allow you to pull your account out and be able to migrate it to, say, the United States or Asia or whatever it is that you need to do. Once logged in, you can see that it takes us to the character selection screen. Here, the game gives you 21 character slots to make characters in. It's basically one for every character in the game. Clicking on any of these will allow you to create a new character. So you can see here's all the classes in the game that are available for us to pick. Clicking on these will give you a bit of a tidbit on their skills, some information on what they do, so you can kind of get an idea of what the class is about, what flavor is it. So we're going to click on Viking. Down here we can type in our name. You can see that we have some different options over here. This game has a hardcore mode. Hardcore heroes will stay dead when they die and can only play with other hardcore heroes. So you decide to play in hardcore, it's definitely one of the bigger challenges of the game. And you cannot play with other people that are not in hardcore. You also have seasons. Seasonal heroes start fresh and can only play with other seasonal heroes. So every 2 or 3 months, the game's going to reset the current season, continuing on. So next season that we have is season 5. This is going to give us a fresh economy. We're all going to have to re-level. It's basically re-experiencing the game again. And lastly, we have Odyssey. Odyssey heroes can only play solo. Market, trading, and the mailbox are disabled. This is a self-imposed challenge of you versus the world, basically. You are solo, self-found. You cannot play with your friends, and you cannot trade. Generally speaking, most players play in season. That's what we're all here for. This is the seasonal softcore ladder for the game. However, if you want those extra challenges, you can play Seasonal Odyssey, and you can rank yourself against other solo self-found players. Or if you want to take on a real challenge, you can play solo self-found hardcore season, which is probably the hardest challenge in the game. For this, I'm just going to select regular season and hit create. Here's a portrait of our character with our name, level, and its class. Let's do a quick overview of all classes currently available, talking about their archetype and playstyle based on the skills that are offered as you level. Once you get to endgame, understand these skills can change dramatically. Viking is a melee focused character with skills like Whirlwind or Shockwave, with the ability to buff himself and party members for crazy defense and survivability. Pyro focuses on dealing fire damage and causes enemies to burn or combust. Some notable skills are things like Scorching Aura, which is really righteous fire from Path of Exile, if you're familiar with that reference, or Hydras. Marksman has the popular multi-shot skill for a right-click bow and go playstyle, or you can also go for the engineer tree, which allows you to construct drones and turrets. Pirate has two different archetypes, fire and cold. The fire tree focuses on shooting bombs and causing explosions, while the cold tree focuses on swinging anchors around and summoning parrots. Nomad can be a sand wizard using desert-like skills such as Sand Gush, or be a melee-focused knife-throwing assassin. Redneck can summon trucks to shoot enemies and use chainsaws to shred enemies. This requires you to live in the United States to understand this class. Necromancer can summon the boys to do damage for you, or become a toxic poison caster. Samurai is a combo-focused melee ninja. Paladin has a ton of lightning melee skills such as Lightning Fury or Vengeance, but can also become a caster by spinning or throwing hammers or calling down holy bolts. Amazon has several poison melee skills dealing damage over time, but it also has a really cool lightning Zon spec. Demon Slayer harnesses your inner demon to shoot barrages of bullets or go into demon form for very fast melee skills. Demon Spawn is a bloodbender using bones, cartilage, and flesh when casting spells. Shaman has a variety of options from being a nature arcane caster, a wolf summoner, or even using several different types of damage on totems. White Mage has dark and light caster skills. The dark side focuses on cursing and debuffing enemies, while the light focuses on healing while dealing damage. Marauder likes to swing his big flail around, throw bombs, or use traps to hook enemies. Plague Doctor can use bleeding knives that bounce and chain everywhere, or become a caster with different tinctures to throw at enemies. Shield Lancer likes to return the damage that he takes, slam his shield, or use his big lance. Illusionist is a caster that can manipulate sand to create minions and make them do weird stuff. Illusionist also has a really cool auto-targeting beam, so... Jotun is my favorite class, and it's literally a cold sword from Diablo 2. If you like Frozen Orb in D2, this is your class. There's also a ton of melee cold skill options. Exo can be a fire caster that focuses on creating a lot of fire projectiles, or a cold caster that focuses on trying to drown your enemies. Butcher likes fresh meat and has a very interesting kit. He can make enemies explode, causing their flesh to deal damage. And lastly, Stormweaver is a lightning caster's wet dream. All the skills on Stormweaver are lightning based, and it is a very fast caster. Once you've created your character, it'll show up here with your name, the class that you chose, and what level you are. Clicking this opens up a new window where you can select your loadouts. If you want to change your skin, if you want to have maybe a new hat, if you want to have wings or different effects, all of this is just cosmetics for your character. Continue on and hit play to go to the lobby menu. Let's go through some different UI elements available here. Starting at the top left, we have different chat channels. So we have general, trade, and guild chat if you're in a guild, as well as you can see how many total players are online in the game. Now, these chat channels are based on which server you're logged into. So right now we're on USA East. However, you can change this anytime. Maybe I want to go to Korea, right? I can switch to the Korea chat channels. I can chat with them. There's trade, there's guild. Keep in mind that anytime you make a new game, that new game will be made in whatever channel you're currently in here. This is the server that you are on. So we're going to move back to US East. Over here, you can see a list of players' games, as well as which ones are locked and will need a password to get in. There is a search function here. You can search by name. You can show private games or not show private games. You can change by difficulty, normal, nightmare, and hell. All that is available here, as well as on the left side, you can sort by the amount of players that are in game. Up here is the official Discord. So if you want access to the official Discord, if you're not in there, go ahead and click this link. Moving down to the bottom right, we have refresh. This is going to refresh the list of games. So maybe you're hanging out with a buddy and he's going to make a game. You can click the refresh to be able to find his game. If you want to create a game, you'll click this button here, create game. From there, you can put in the name of your game and a password, as well as if you want Steam friends to be able to join without a password, and the minimum player level that people need to be in order to join your game. So maybe you want to make sure that it's an open lobby, but you only want people that are level 100 to be able to come into your game. From there, you can select your difficulty, normal, nightmare, and hell. On this character, I don't have nightmare or hell unlocked, so I can't click on those currently. If you want to join a game, simply click on the game that you want to join. It'll highlight here. Hit join game. If it has a password, you'll enter the password. If it doesn't, you'll just automatically be joining that game. Next, we have leaderboards. And I won't go too in depth here, but mainly you have solo, duo, trio, and quad ranking for Wormholes. We'll talk about Wormholes later in the video, but here's all the rankings for that. Same thing for hero levels. This will show you the highest rankings for hero levels. We will talk about that later in the video as well. You can change between different modes. So maybe we want to see hardcore instead, and maybe we want to see just normal hardcore. We don't want to see Odyssey anymore. We can change between those different sections, as well as over here on the bottom left, we have server first level 100s. This is for your character's level 100, not for hero level 100. So when we click on this, we can see softcore, hardcore, softcore Odyssey, and hardcore Odyssey, the very first players in each server that hit level 100 in each of these categories at the start of a season. Next is guilds. This will just show you your guild name, officers, members that are in your guild. You can go up here to perks. You can see all the perks that your guild is currently giving you, as well as you can change different settings if you're an admin in your guild. I will have a more detailed section about guilds discussing how those work and the perks that you get out of being in a guild. And lastly, you can click on hero selection. This will just take you back. Down at the bottom, here's a list of all the players that are currently online in this server. You can see all their levels, their hero levels, a portrait of them, so to see what gear they're wearing. You can also right click them and hit inspect, and you can inspect their character. You can see exactly what they're wearing, what they've got going on. Okay, so I've created my character. I'm going to go ahead and hit play to load into the lobby main menu. Now we're going to create a game. You can see here that I have 3 different difficulties: normal, nightmare, and hell, with nightmare and hell being locked. The reason for this is we have to unlock them. In order to do this, we need to complete normal, or more specifically, we need to kill Mevius in Act 7 of normal. This will unlock nightmare. Once in nightmare, we have to do the same thing. We either have to complete the game, or it's killing Mevius in Act 7 of nightmare, which will unlock hell. Each of these options does increase the difficulty of monsters, giving them more health, as well as they're going to do more damage. Once your character has made it to hell, you will start in a sub difficulty that we call Hell 1. The reason for that is you have a slider here that can go all the way up to Hell 5. That increases the monster life, monster damage, monster's defense, but also gives you additional magic find. In order to unlock the next difficulties, you need to kill Mevius once again in Hell 1 in order to unlock Hells 2 and Hell 3. Now that we're in Hell 3, if we want to unlock the last 2, we once again have to kill Mevius. That will unlock Hells 4 and Hells 5. So starting with Hell 1, there's no direct increase to monsters' life or damage other than just being in the Hell difficulty beyond Nightmare. Hell 2, those monsters start to have 400% life of the Hell 1 difficulty. So that's what that means. It's 400% increased of the base value of Hell 1. So 400%, 15% monster damage, 4% defense, 200% magic find that you gain. In Hell 3, it's 850% monster life, 225% monster damage, 8% monster's defense, and 400% magic find for you. Hell 4, we have 1500% monster life, 40% monster damage, 12% monster defense, and 575% magic find. And lastly, in Hell 5, we have 2250 monster life, 55 monster damage, 16% monster's defense, but you gain 825% magic find. The main thing to remember here is just that you need to kill Mevius in Act 7 in order to move on to the next difficulty in your progression. Now that we're in game, I do want to show you some just real basic movement controls. I prefer to use WASD or WSAD to move around. It feels the best for me, but you can also use left click to move. Or if you prefer right click, you can rebind that key so that you have right click to move. Another really nice movement feature is pressing space will let you jump. That can also be rebound to something else. Anytime there's an object that's interactable, you will get a pop-up showing your interactable keybind that will allow you to interact with those NPCs or stations. And lastly, there is full controller support. I personally don't use controller, but it does have some really nice features available on it. So if that's something that you are interested in, definitely check that out in the options. Let's talk about all the different UI elements that are available in game. Starting at the top left, you can see here's a portrait of our character. Our current level is 16. We can see our character name, how much life we have, and our mana values. That is also displayed here in the middle over your character. I can see my character's name, my current life bar, and my mana bar. This plus sign here means that I have skill points or attribute points that are ready to be spent. In the top right, you can see it tells us we're in the town of Anoia, what difficulty we have, and that this is a safe zone. I can't get attacked or die here. I have a mini map in the top right. You can press tab in order to change between a overlay map. or no map, or the mini map. So it's 3 different toggles that you can toggle between for your mini map. Below the mini map, you can see our FPS, the time. This is our quest log. We have the ability to hover over this. It'll tell us what we need to do in order to complete that quest. We can also lock the quest so that if I were to use skills while hovering over this, it's not going to cause this window to pop up. Right clicking here does pop up a list of all of our quests. Moving down, here's a DPS counter. This can be turned on and off, but you can select this 3 bars here and you can reset it. You can have it automatically reset after you've been outside of combat. You can compress the values. The numbers get pretty high in this game, so you can compress those values to see it a bit easier, as well as you can lock and unlock it to be able to move it around in a place that you like it. This bottom bar here is where our skills show, as well as it will tell us a couple of our keybinds. So I have I showing as my inventory, T showing as my player skill tree, my character sheet, hero levels. I can also see my mercenary here. V is my portal, so I can use that to create a portal back to town. Then we have our total gold value. This is an in-game currency that we can use to buy items from the auction house or buy items from vendors, that sort of thing. And then below that, we have something called Glyph Experience that we'll cover in the Glyph section. Every town has a waypoint platform. That's what this is right here. So they all look exactly the same. I'm gonna go ahead and click on this one and interact with it just to show you what the map looks like. So I don't have the whole thing uncovered. I am still playing this character, but this just shows you different points that you can teleport to. In order to set up skills on your skill bar, simply select either of these here. This will open up your bigger bar showing all of your current hotkeys. As I hover over my hotkeys here, I can select skills that I want to put in them. So maybe on Q, I want to have my blade barrier, which is this skill here. All I have to do is click on Q and click on blade barrier and it will move that. Maybe on E, I want to have my battle glance. Click on it, it'll move that. Another way is maybe I want to move blade barrier over to R. I can just hover over skills here and just click the hotkey that I want them on. So I can move stuff around that way pretty easily. Next, we'll talk about our inventory screens. So you can see my hotkey for it is I. Yours might be different. So I'm going to either click on this or press the I key. This will open up this window here. This is going to show you all of the items that your character is currently wearing. I took these off just for the video. I'll show you as we put them on what those look like. On the right here is charm inventory. This is where you can place things like these charms to fit in these sockets. So that has to fit within these different slots. So maybe if you find one like this, I can't put it here because there's not an actual slot here in the middle. But you can find them having 3 slots. They can have 2 slots. They can have 1 slot. And they have different varying affixes on them for bonuses to your character. On the bottom here, you can see that we have different buttons that we can select. Starting with the one on the far left, we have our runes, gems, jewels, all those sorts of things will automatically be placed in here on pickup. A lot of the things that your pet will auto pick up will go in here. Next, we have potions. This is where all of your potions will be stored, including satanic potions. At the top here, you can see that we have a couple new options for autofill in your belt and use all slots. Autofill belt will automatically fill the next life potion that you have in this section onto your belt for you whenever you use a potion. So you're not constantly having to come back to this spot and put new potions in your belt. And then the use all slots button will make it so that whenever I press the number 1 on my keyboard, it's going to use all 4 slots, or the number 2, it'll use all 4 slots, whichever hotkey you have in these slots. If you pick one of them, it's going to use all 4 of your potions on that one click. Next is our key ring. Any sort of key that you find in the game, there's tons of different ones, will always show up here. And then from there, we have our main inventory when we're picking up items off of the ground, like weapons or gear. All that stuff is going to automatically come to this spot here. And you have multiple extra tabs that you can get for those items. The last thing I'll show you here is at the top right, we have the ability to sort our tab. This will automatically sort things for you, which is really nice and convenient. Went and bought a mercenary real fast. So when I click on mercenary, you can see that our mercenary has gear that he can wear as well. So from my inventory tab, if I want to put on a new item, all I have to do is just hover over it, drop it in its respective spot. And it's that simple. So we can put on a weapon, we can put on an amulet, we can put on some gloves. And the last part of our character's inventory is right here in the middle. We have our relic storage. You can see that there's 4 different slots here for relics. Another part of our storage is our character stash. Every single act will have a stash in it. This is Act 1. It's just north of the waypoint. This is an 18 by 18 page. Every character will have this very first tab as a personal tab, meaning if I log into another character, I cannot see what's in that first tab on a different character because every character has their own personal tab. However, all of these other ones are shared and can be seen by any character that you're logged into. A couple of features of this tab, you can hit the sort tab button in the top right here. This will sort that tab for you. You can search for items based off of their name. So maybe I'm looking for a Tablet of the Awakening. I see I have one here, and it does add this really nice highlight over the item to make it very easy to find. And lastly, if you do have Hero Siege Plus, you can right click these tabs and it allows you to rename the tabs. Let's talk about some different stash tab and inventory hotkeys. If you open up your inventory at the bottom right here, it'll kind of give you a tidbit on what you can and can't do with items. We'll start here at the top left one. The move, simply just left click an item and you can move it back and forth. The right mouse button allows you to equip or use. This does not work on charms, but I can maybe right click a gun and I can add that in or unequip it, or maybe a pair of gloves, whatever I want to do there, I can right click or you can manually pick them up. Control right mouse button will drop the item. And if you hit shift with the left mouse button, it'll open up a new window here where you can stack and unstack items. You can also just type in the number here. So say I just want 1, I can just hit 1 on my keyboard. If you have items in a page that can be stacked, whenever you hit the sort tab button, it will automatically stack those items for you. The same applies for your stash tab. If you have, say you have 1 here and you throw this one in here and you hit sort tab, that will automatically sort those and stack them for you. You can use a lot of these same hotkeys in the actual stash. So if I hit shift left mouse button, I can change stacks. I can also hit control with left click to be able to move things back and forth from my inventory to my stash. Hitting escape brings up a menu of new options. Starting at the top left here, we have this exclamation point. This is just our quest log. Next is the Endgame journal. This is extremely important. I highly advise that you spend some time in here and just get familiar with it, learn how to navigate it. It is very, very useful. So we're going to hit this. I'm going to do just a quick overview. This is going to show us every single rune word in the game. Every crafting recipe that you would ever want to know is in here. All of our jewel crafting information is also here. You can hover over any of these gems or jewels and it'll give you information about them, as well as what it takes in order to craft these items. All of the mining information that you'll need from prospecting, the different chances that you'll get, certain types of materials from prospecting certain types of ore, and a full item catalog of every item in the game, allowing you to hover over items and see exactly what they do. Next is this thumbs up. This is actually the emote tab. This allows you to select different emotes and put them in different spots on your emote bar. Next is this top hat here. This is your loadout. You see this whenever you're in the character select screen, you click on your character, but right before you hit play, it'll show your loadout. You can also do your loadout right here in game. And whenever you make changes here, you don't need to restart the game or restart your game. It's all retroactive. So say I go to skins here and I want a new skin. I can do show only owned. So I can see the skins that I have for this character in particular. I can click a new skin here. And when I exit out of here, you can see now I'm wearing the new skin. An interesting fact about skins is they actually will change the color and animations of certain skills. So if I come in here to my skills, I'm going to select the blade barrier real quick. And currently we're using this dragon looking skin, right? So whenever I use blade barrier, you can see it's kind of bright. I'm not sure what color that is, like blue or white. However, if I change my loadout to a different skin, I'm going to use the red skin that I had on before. When I use it, now it's dark. So this can give different colors and add some cosmetics to your skills, really. Next, we have an accessory. These are different wings that you can put on your character, tons and tons of them. Portraits, you can change your portrait that shows up here in the top left. This is also the same portrait that other players will see. So if you change to this one here, other players will see that portrait. Companions are the little guys that follow you. They help pick up gold and just different things on the ground. You do get a free one. I believe it's this little fox that is free that will run around and pick up gold and stuff for you. Next, we have effects, and this is just kind of auras around your character. You can pick different ones here to, spice up your character a bit. Next, we have a portal skin. Whenever you put down a portal, this is the default look of it here, but you can change it to any of these, whatever you like. Next, we have interface, and this is going to change kind of this bottom bar here. Maybe we want this blue looking one or purple. I'm not sure what color that is. We can change the overall theme of our UI. Next is the cursor. If you have Hero Siege Plus, you can change your cursor to a different one. And last is our mercenary skin. You can actually change the look of your mercenary. So he's now a pig. And the last one is the shop. Before we go too far into the shop, the first thing that I want to mention, there is no pay to win in Hero Siege. There is a slight bit of pay for convenience, as whenever you first start, you don't have all the inventory space. There's inventory tabs that you could purchase that give you extra space, but you don't need them in order to sell items or any of that sort of stuff. We'll go ahead and run through these different tabs in the shop. First one is featured. Generally on a new season, they have some new skins, so they will feature those. There's also the season bundle, and the season bundle will come generally with skins, wings, companions, portraits, just more cosmetics. Next, we have all the character classes. All of the class skins are listed in here. If you would like to have some new companions, you're welcome to get these furry guys. However, you don't have to purchase a companion. They do give you one for free. Again, inventory and stash. This is where you can buy additional character slots. You can buy inventory space. You can buy stash space. It's only up to a certain amount. It's not an unlimited amount. But once you have them all, you have them all. Loot boxes and keys. This is only for cosmetics. This has no in-game rewards. You could buy keys to go for some of the older skins, some limited skins. And last but not least, we have Hero Siege Plus. This subscription is meant for players who want to support the ongoing development of Hero Siege. All money made from the subscriptions is used to pay for server costs and the betterment of the game. Hero Siege Plus only features some cosmetics and quality of life stuff and does not give the players in the game any advantage. We stand against pay to win. You do get a cabin in Act 1 town that you can go into that, has a stash in there. You can reach the auction house in there, that sort of thing. There's a waypoint in it as well. There's some additional features that you get with Hero Siege Plus. You can rename your inventory and stash tabs. You can see if an item has dropped due to your own magic find. It'll have the tag of fortune on it, which tells you that it dropped due to your magic find. You can rename your hero anytime. This is really fun. I like to do that whenever I'm messing with some of the guys or something messing with some of the devs. I'll rename my character name. You can change the color of your name in game, as well as you can display your rankings in game. This also gives you some additional chat emotes that you can access, as well as those cursor skins we're talking about. You have access to all the additional cursor skins. One of my favorite features of Hero Siege is the ability to reset a game without needing to leave and create a new one. This feature is called Vote Reset or Restart if you're on local. You can access it by pressing Escape on your keyboard and clicking on the Restart or Vote Reset button. This will refresh your game as if you created a new one. If there are other players in your game, everyone must select the Vote Reset for this feature to take effect. But be careful and make sure that everyone's done killing, as if you vote reset while your friends are still killing, they may drop you some loot, and then they vote reset. It's going to cause your loot to be lost to the void forever. Our next choice in the in-game menu is the Options tab. In here, we can make changes to video, audio, and gameplay options, as well as change all of our keybinds for both keyboard and controller. Let's go through all of these options now. Starting with video, our first option here is display mode. In here, you can select different display modes if you like windowed or full screen. I prefer windowed full screen just because I stream. I like to go back and forth between different monitors without having to alt tab. You can also change your window size when in windowed mode. Brightness will let you select the brightness of your screen. This gets very, very bright, as well as you can set different contrast. If you like playing in a different aspect ratio, you can change the aspect ratio of the game. We do have a VSync option. Vertical sync synchronizes the refresh rate and frame rate of a monitor, fixing screen tearing. So if you have a lower end PC, this might help you with some frame rate issues. Next is frame rate. Most of us know what this is. I have mine set to 120. I feel like 144 is maybe just a little bit too much for my system right now. However, if you have a lower end PC, you're more than welcome to hit the 60 frames. It will help a ton. Next is your in-game field of view. This determines how close or how far the camera is from your player, so you can zoom in and zoom out basically. Cursor size, you can make your cursor smaller, you can make your cursor bigger. I like to have it at max size because I am very colorblind, so I lose it all the time. Outlines will enable or disable outline drawings. I wouldn't worry about this, I would keep this on. Show experience, you can turn this off if you don't want to see the experience number in here unless you hover over it. Show FPS, this will show your FPS in the top right underneath your minimap. Skill opacity is fantastic. This allows you to turn down the opacity of your skills or your party member's skills. So maybe you only want to see yours in a party of 4. You can turn this down so that their effects aren't destroying your screen. Or maybe you're playing solo, you can actually turn yours down so that your effects aren't destroying your screen. Lastly, you have colorblind mode. There's some different options in here. I'm completely colorblind, and I'll be honest with you, these really mess with my vision, but if you are red-green colorblind or blue-yellow colorblind, these are more for you. Next, we have audio options. You have your master volume, music, ambient sounds. This is like the wind and rain. The sounds are all sound effects within the game, hitting monsters, that sort of thing. Loot volume, I always leave at 100%. This is the volume of all loot drops in the game. And then last but not least, we have voice acting. I turn mine all the way down, but you can turn this up if you would like to hear more of the quests. Next, we have gameplay. If you'd like to turn off your player name, generally I do because I don't like to see my player name while I'm playing. You can turn that off. However, if you are having trouble finding your character, this is actually a really good way to find your character in the midst of a lot of skill effects. Show player health. This is that same bar right above your character's head. If you don't want to see that, you can turn that off. Again, I find it nice because I can visually see how much life and mana I have. This is a bit out of my peripheral. Loot names is the ground label for items. So if you don't want to see ground labels whenever you drop an item, you want it to be on hover only, then you would turn that option off. Always show enemy health. This is whenever you're out in the world, you can see these enemies always have their health bars shown. I really like this. I generally will never mess with this, but if you would like to have their health bars gone unless you actually physically hit them, you could turn this option off. Next is show enemy attack hitboxes. Whenever you hover over an enemy, you can see it has an outline here. That's the hitbox. So it lets me know that I'm hovering over that monster. Show DPS counter. That's this down here. This is my DPS counter. You can turn that option on and off. Next, we have show boss cooldowns. This will actually give you a window here where it'll show you when the boss is going to drop certain mechanics to help you dodge them. Kind of reminds me of Deadly Boss mods from WoW, the add-on. So if you are bossing a lot, or maybe you're trying to learn some of the bosses, you can actually use this as a tool. Next, you have two options to center your DPS counter and center the boss cooldowns. This is just going to change where they are by default. You can actually click on these and unlock them and just move them yourself. That's generally what I do. Next, we have show damage. This is just going to show damage whenever we hit a monster. Show experience gain. If you would like to see how much experience you're getting from killing a monster, it'll show that just like it's showing the DPS here. Compress combat text. Turn this option off will make it so that it gives you the whole number here whenever you deal damage. Minimap color changes your minimap's overlay color. So you can see here's the current color of mine, and it's that same color here on the minimap. If I change it, say we add a little bit of blue into it, we can change the color, hit confirm. You can see now it's purple or blue or whatever color that is. Minimap scale. This will allow you to scale your minimap if you want to see way more of it. You want it to be way bigger. You can scale it up or scale it down. As a side note, you can also do this with your mouse wheel. Whenever your minimap is up, if you zoom in and out, you can change its size without having to go to your options. Next is the minimap opacity. So if you want it to be fairly faded, you don't want it to be super in your way, you can make it a bit more transparent. Minimap loot size. This will change how big certain stars and icons are in your minimap. So let's go ahead and turn this down just a little bit. We'll put this at, say, 40%. You can see this item here has a star on it. We can increase its size by turning this loot size up to 100%. You can see it's much bigger now. I like this at 100% because I have a really hard time seeing stuff. Minimap player and enemy size. This will change how big monsters are in your minimap. The minimap gives you the ability to have these icons to show different enemy types, as well as you can see my icon here. You can change the size of that as well. Show minimap environment. This is if you want to see like trees and rocks and that sort of thing. So here's what the minimap looks like with it on. And then when we turn it off, you can see all that stuff is now gone. Next, we have minimap turbo performance. This increases your FPS, but lowers the map updating frequency. So turning this setting on will make monsters as they move, they don't update on your minimap as frequently. It's not like exactly as they're moving. It's showing you exactly their position. It's making the frequency of the updates to the minimap much slower. This will increase your FPS. If you have a Giga computer and this doesn't matter to you, then you can turn it on. You'll see exactly where everything is the second that it's there. Next, we have chat settings. You can turn on and off general chat. You can also turn on and off different notifications that you'll get in certain chats. You can enable and disable a chat fade, as well as tell it how long you want it to wait before it fades into the background, as well as how transparent the actual chat is whenever it is up. Next is screen shake. If you like your screen shaking whenever you're doing damage, then I would turn this option on. If you can't stand that like me, then turn it off. Vibration is for the gamepad. Whenever you're doing damage, your gamepad will vibrate. Outline color is the outline of enemies, as well as certain objects will have this border around them whenever they're behind certain structures. Next, we have loot filter. Clicking this will allow you to change loot filter settings if you want to have any of these certain filter presets or highlight presets. All that stuff is here. We do have a full detailed explanation on how loot filters work. Look for the loot filters explained in the timestamps. And lastly, we have controls. Going to the mouse and keyboard, you can see that we can change the keybind for pretty much anything. One big note to make here is disable mouse movement. Turning this on will make it so that your left click is no longer a movement skill. So I'm holding left click right now. I no longer move. This will make it so that you're basically always stopping to attack. So you're not going to left click and move to something and then attack because it's been disabled. A couple other noteworthy keybinds here. By default, the mini map is on M and show map is on tab. So whenever you click show map, it's going to open your bigger map. And whenever you hit M, it's going to open your overlay mini map. I personally hate this. I played Diablo 2 for years and it's always been tab. I played Path of Exile for years. It's always been tab. So for you D2 POB players, this is where you would change that at. If you don't like your loot always showing, you would rather use a keybind to show the loot or the ground labels more specifically, you can change that keybind here. As well as there is a ping system in the game. You can hit control and right mouse button anywhere in the map and it will create a ping on the minimap for all players in your game. Here's all your skill keybinds over here. You can change any of these to buttons that feel comfortable to you. And our last option here is save and exit. If we would like to leave and maybe join somebody else's game, we would just click this to be able to do that. Every player is given a mailbox located in Act 1 town just north of the waypoint. In here, you can collect gold from completed trades. You can also delete trades that you've already gained the gold from, send guild invites, or directly send items and gold to other players. The auction house is in Act 3 in any difficulty. Simply go north and talk to Veros. Let's go through some of the trade UI. In the top left, you have your different tabs for modes that you're in. So right now we're in the buy mode. So any of these items, I can scroll through here. If I want to buy something, I can click on it, hit buy item, and it'll buy that item. That item is directly put into my inventory. I now have it. You can also filter things that you want to buy. So maybe I want to filter out items by sockets. I want them to have 3 sockets. Then we hit refresh. You can also sort by specific parameters. So maybe I want to see the cheapest price first. Hit refresh. And lastly, we have an additional filter here. Maybe I want to see it for a specific class, or maybe I want it to have a specific affix on it. Next, we have the sell tab. And these are all your current items that you have for trade. And lastly, we have the history tab. This will show you any items that you have purchased, when it was listed, when it was bought, and how much you bought it for. In the top, you do have a search function available. This is only for items that have actual names to them. So for example, you can't look for a mythic item by name because they're all going to be very different. So you're only able to search for specific items. For example, maybe I want a Harley Quinn. For example, maybe I'm looking for a Harley Quinn, right? I can find that item in particular. And the last thing you can see over here on the far right, there is a sell limit. So I can right now sell up to 45 items. By default, I believe it's 15 items to what you're allotted. However, you can purchase more. Now to sell an item, you're simply going to click on the sell tab. You'll hit sell item, pick the item that you want to sell, drop it in here, name its price. There is a tax to sell items. You can also remove any items that you have had up for a while and want to reprice, or if you just want to remove them as you accidentally put the wrong price on them, simply click on them and just hit remove. You can also directly trade with other players if you want to avoid those big taxes if it's a bigger ticket item. I don't have another player in here to show you, but you would simply right click on their portrait and hit trade. A new window will pop up where you can drop the item in and put the price and they can accept the trade that way. Guilds are a fun way to group up with your friends. You'll gain a unique tag next to your character name and a wide range of different perks, which you can unlock by leveling up your guild. To create a guild, you'll simply press your guild hotkey. It's different for everybody. I have mine on home. Yours will probably be either G or B. In here, you'll have a create guild option. You'll just follow the different prompts to create your own guild. Or if you want to join somebody else's guild, simply invite them into your game. Again, I don't have another player in my game, but they will right click on your portrait and hit invite to guild. Or you can ask them to send you a guild invite through the mailbox. However, they will need your actual account name, not your character name. Here's some of the perks available to guilds as they level up. Also, if you want to join my guild, send me a message on Discord. We always push to hit level 100 as fast as possible. The first one is you unlock a guild stash. This is great if you want to trade with some of your guild mates. This is much better if you're in a guild that doesn't have some random players in it. Obviously, I'm a streamer, so I know a lot of the people that hang out because they're from my chat. However, they're strangers to each other, so I wouldn't just throw things into a guild stash, especially my guild stash. I wouldn't just throw them in there. But if you're playing with some of the boys, some of the homies that you know, then this is a really cool feature to be able to trade gear with each other. Next, we have lower the cost of hiring mercenaries by 10%. They're not expensive now, but I mean 10%, 10%. Next, we also lower the cost of resurrecting mercenaries. My merc dies all the time because I throw a bunch of MF on him and don't make him tanky at all. So this is, again, 10%, 10%. Next, we have magic find by 5%. This is kind of useless. Increases the gold drops from monster kills by 10%. I mean, over the course of a good amount of time playing, 10% is 10%. Increases the guild member movement speed by 5%. Lower your vendor prices by 5%. And lastly, the best one, all of the heroes in the guild receive 5% additional experience from kills and quests. This is actually really nice if you're trying to push for hero level 100. And you also get an additional guild tab. Questing can help you progress through the game, enhancing your overall experience by granting experience, gold, and item rewards. However, no questing is required to complete the game. Here's a detailed breakdown of how questing works in Hero Siege. There are a few different types of quests: main, side, dailies, and weeklies. Main quests are primary objectives that drive the main story forward. Completing these quests usually involves a sequence of quests that lead up to defeating a specific boss or completing a major game milestone. Side quests are completely optional objectives that offer additional challenges and rewards. There are very few of these in Hero Siege. Dailies are found on the bounty board in Act 1. Simply complete the random quests for valuable rewards up to high runes, gear drops, or even keys. These rewards scale by difficulty, so it's best to wait until you're at least in hell to turn these in. You must have Act 8 completed in normal in order to receive daily quests. Weekly quests are a community quest found on the bounty board in Act 1. Once the community has completed it, you'll receive an automatic aura called Angel's Embrace, giving you that week's reward. You also must have Act 8 completed in normal in order to receive a weekly quest. The game provides a quest log or journal that helps you track your progress and objectives. This feature is useful for keeping track of what you completed and what still needs to be done. If you're like me and can't stand questing, a general rule of thumb here is complete all your quests in Act 1 normal, then complete all of your quests in Act 1 nightmare. There's only one. And lastly, complete all of the quests in Act 1 hell. Again, there's only one. From here, some people decide to complete all of the quests in hell because there's only one per act, so it's really not too difficult. And if you get through some of them, you do get high runes as a reward. In Hero Siege, skills are abilities that play a crucial role in your character's effectiveness during combat. One skill point is granted each time your character levels up. To allocate a skill point, simply open your skill tree by clicking the plus sign icon in your skill bar or pressing the corresponding hotkey. Then simply left click on the skill you'd like to use. You can allocate 20 points to one particular skill before it's maxed out. These are known as hard points. In Hero Siege, there are two main types of skills: actives and passives. Active skills are abilities that you can use in combat, like attacks, spells, or special actions. Each class has a unique set of active skills that you can unlock and upgrade as you progress. Passive skills, on the other hand, are abilities that provide ongoing benefits without direct activation. They can enhance your character's stats, provide buffs, or give bonuses to certain actions. For instance, passive skills might increase your health, boost your damage, or improve your defenses. To identify which skills are active or passives, simply hover over them in your skill tree or on the skill bar in the bottom left of your screen. You will see in the top left next to the skill icon whether it's an active or a passive skill. For active skills, there are three main types: attacks, spells, and temporary buffs. You can determine which one a particular skill is by hovering over them in your skill tree or on the skill bar in the bottom left. Around the middle in brackets will be a skill's method of delivery, either an attack or a cast. Temporary buffs are generally casts that have no damage type. Let's do a deep dive on skill tooltips, explaining each part so you will always know exactly how a skill functions. Starting in the top left, we have a skill's icon, name, damage type, and if it's either an active or a passive. Every skill will have a description explaining its function. Below that in brackets is the skill's tags or affixes that affect this skill. On Whirlwind, we have melee and attack, so sources of increased melee damage or increased attack damage would affect Whirlwind. So tags are really just modifiers on gear or equipment that will affect the skill. Next is how to scale a skill's method of delivery. For this example, Whirlwind is an attack that swings your weapons, so increasing your attack speed will affect Whirlwind. Between these two big lines is the damage calculations or values. For Whirlwind, this shows how much additional attack damage you're receiving when hitting. For spells, it will show the spell's base damage value. And for temporary buffs, it will show the values for whatever effect that buff is granting. The values in gray are what the skill increases to on the next time you level it up. And lastly, at the bottom is a skill synergies. Synergies are skills or attributes that further scale a skill's damage. Let me explain. You are given up to 100 skill points to allocate at max level. However, you can only allocate 20 points into one skill before it's maxed. Synergies are skills available in your skill tree that further improve the damage of that main skill. So for Whirlwind, spending points in either Brute Force, Zeal, or Battle Agility will add attack damage for each point spent. Most skills have an attribute synergy as well. Available in this guide is an attributes deep dive under Attributes Explained. For now, all you need to know is that allocating points in the attribute listed is also a damage synergy. In the top right, you can see a skill's mana cost, movement diminish. The 85% here means that using this skill reduces your character's movement speed by 15%, so you're getting 85% effectiveness of your movement speed during the skill's animation. The duration and cooldown if applicable. Here's an example of a skills tooltip, but on a spell instead. For this example, we're going to be using Blood Surge from the Demon Spawn. Starting in the top left, you do see the skill's icon, the name of the skill, its damage type is Arcane, and below that, it is an active skill. The description states that we channel a massive blood surge towards a target direction, dealing arcane damage and slowing enemies on its path. The only available tag on this skill is cast, so increased faster cast rate would affect this. And below that, we can see once again, faster cast rate is how we scale the method of delivery, or how we get more blood surges basically. Between those two big lines, we can see the base damage of the skill. I don't have any points in this skill, that's why it shows 0. And at the bottom, we can see blood surges synergies. So putting points in blood bolts, gut spread, or blood demons will increase the arcane damage of our blood surge. And lastly, intelligence will scale this skill. So putting points in intelligence will also give additional damage to blood surge. And lastly, at the top right, we can see its mana cost, its movement diminish, and its range. Skill trees are a system that allows players to customize and enhance their character's abilities and playstyles. Each class in the game has its own unique skill tree, which is essentially a branching diagram of various skills or abilities. Here's how it works. As your character gains experience and levels up, you earn skill points, and these points can be spent to improve your skills in the skill tree. To access your skill tree, simply click on this plus sign down here in your skill bar or hit the corresponding hotkey. The tree is organized into 2 branches that represent different abilities, archetypes, or playstyles. For example, Marksman has 2 trees, the Sharpshooter and the Engineer. Sharpshooter focuses on bow skills, while the Engineer focuses on making either turrets or gunner drones. These 2 trees also have completely different archetypes. Every class in the game has 5 tiers of skills that unlock as you reach certain character-specific levels. The first tier is available at level 1 and it starts at the top. It then flows down, unlocking skills at level 8, level 16, level 24, and level 30. Some skills have prerequisites defined by these red lines. For example, my character is level 100, but I can't put points into Gunner Drone because I have to select the prerequisites of Arrow Turret, Turret Mastery, Master Mechanic, and Gunner Drone in order to put points into it. Keep in mind, skill synergies may not always be connected to the main skill or even be part of the same skill tree. For more information on synergies, look for Synergies Explained in the timestamps. If you make a mistake or just want to try out different skills, there's a Reset Skills button right here. As of right now, this doesn't cost any gold. In the future, they may bring a gold value to this. I can't expect it'll be that much if they do. Skill loadouts are available at the top of the tree. This will automatically save your skill selections and the action bar presets based on which loadout you have currently active. You are given 2 loadouts by default. So my first loadout, we have Rocket Turret. If I want to switch quickly to Cannon Turret, I can press my skill tree, hit the number 2 here, and we can move into Cannon Turret, where now I also have the ability to vault around. Sub-skill trees are a new feature designed to further expand and refine character customization by adding another layer to the existing skill tree system. They provide additional options for enhancing and modifying the abilities of your character. Essentially, they function as a secondary skill tree that branches off from the main skill tree. Here's how it works. To unlock the sub-skill tree, you must have at least 1 point allocated in the main skill. You gain 1 sub-skill tree point for every skill that you have allocated every 5 character levels for a maximum of 20 sub-points per skill. To access the sub-skill tree, simply click on the plus sign at the top right of the main skill you're looking to spec into. A new window will pop up that looks just like this. This tree starts at the bottom,
Connecting to small nodes that have stacking buffs. Placing 2 points in a small node unlocks any node connected to it. You can only place points in nodes connected to your main path. At the end of the tree are large nodes, more commonly known as augments. They're extremely potent and very build defining. You can only allocate 1 augment per skill. If you make a mistake, simply click the reset button in the bottom right to gain all of your skill points back. And again, you can put 20 points into any skill that you have at least 1 point allocated into. So if I want to go into Whirlwind and maybe we want to spec into as much area of effect as we can get, we can do that in combination with maybe we want to use Berserk as our single target. So we could also spec into the augment for Berserk. There are a lot of different combinations that you can do with builds. Attributes are fundamental stats that influence your character's performance in various ways. These attributes play a crucial role in shaping your character's capabilities and overall effectiveness in combat. To access or allocate attributes, simply click on the plus sign on the bottom left on your action bar or hit the corresponding keybind. Your attributes are located on the top left. The plus sign indicates that you have points available to spend. You gain 4 attribute points per character level, giving us a total of 400 points to spend at level 100. There is no limit or diminishing return on points spent in an attribute. Here's a rundown of each of these attributes. Dexterity enhances your character's attack rating by 8 and critical strike damage by 0.125% per point. Intelligence boosts your character's magic skill damage by 1% per point, increasing the damage done by elemental skills. Every point in energy increases your mana by 4. Mana gained from energy also increases your base mana replenish. Armor reduces physical damage taken per point. Diminishing returns do start at 25%. This also increases your defense by 5 per point, which is your chance to dodge attacks and projectiles. And lastly, Vitality increases your life by 5 per point. Life gain from Vitality also increases your base life replenish, which is your life gained per second. You also gain base life and mana each time that you level without putting points in. Here are my recommendations for a fresh character. Just starting out in the game, you don't have a ton of mana, which makes it so that you're going to end up using a lot of mana pots because you aren't going to be able to sustain the mana that you do have. I like to put a few points into energy just to give me a bit of mana early. There are other ways that you can sustain mana through sources of on-kill and leech effects. However, this is a diminishing return if you don't have a bigger mana pool. Say you only have 40 mana and you kill a giant pack of mobs, you're going to get all of your mana back, but you could have got another, say, 100 mana back, which would have carried you much longer. It's also going to really help whenever you're fighting bosses or single targets, as you will have more mana to work with. This becomes even more noticeable once you get more points in your main skill, as it increases the mana cost of your skill. From here, generally I follow the rule of 2 points into Vitality to give me life and 2 points into my main damage. So that's 2 points Vitality life, and then if I'm a spellcaster, that's 2 points of Intelligence for damage, or if you're attack based, that will be 2 points of Strength. While we're in the character sheet, let's go through all these different options that can also affect your character. You can hover over these at any point just to get a preview of what they do. First, we have attacks per second. This is literally the amount of attacks that you do in a second per different weapon type that you're wearing. So right now I have 2 two-handed weapons on. You can see the base on this is 1.15 and the base on this is 2.25 for the attacks per second. And that shows here. So 1.15 for my left hand and 2.24 for my right hand. We can increase this through sources of increased attack speed. Attack speed is always calculated using 1 attacks per second. That means if I get like 50% increased attack speed on a pair of gloves, it's going to give me 0.5 to my left hand and 0.5 to my right hand. It's not going to give me 50% of, say, 2.25 increased. It's basing it as if you have 1 attack per second, no matter what the numbers here are. Movement speed is literally your character's movement speed. Damage is the amount of damage that your attacks do. This is including additive damage from different sources. Attack rating is your chance to hit or your accuracy. Faster cast rate simply increases how fast you can cast. Cast rate is always calculated using 1 cast per second. Kind of the same idea with the increased attack speed. If you get 50% increased faster cast rate, that is 0.5 to your actual cast per second. All skills is how many plus all skills you have on your character through different sources like gear, relics, charms. Magic skill damage increases the damage of your skills, excluding skills which deal attack damage. This stat is calculated on top of the final value. So what this means is there's a lot of different types of elemental damage in this game. You've got fire, cold, lightning, arcane. Magic skill damage is all of those. This stat is calculated at the end of the formula. So you have all of your other base damages and skills and just different things that beef up your skill. And at the very end, you get this magic skill damage multiplier. Critical strike damage is the amount of crit strike damage that you have. This will only affect physical attacks. There is ways to get crit and crit damage for spells. However, it's not just on generic gear. You have to do it through other means. This is your critical strike chance when striking. Again, this only affects physical attacks. Deadly blow increases your physical damage by 50%. This stat goes up to 100%. So if you have 100% deadly blow, you always have this 50% increased physical damage. Crushing blow breaks enemies' armor by 10%, stacking up to 5 times, increasing physical damage taken by enemies. Open wounds bleeds the target for 20% of your physical damage. Ignore target defense ignores an enemy's defense rating, making it easier to hit the target. In Hero Siege, defense is literally your chance to dodge. So for enemies, that's the same thing. It's their chance to dodge as well. Slow target allows attacks to slow enemy movement and attack speed. At the bottom left here, we have arcane skill damage, cold skill damage, fire skill damage, poison skill damage, and lightning skill damage. This is just all the different elemental type skill damages and how much percent increase that you have on that. There are items in the game that you can get, say, increased arcane skill damage, and maybe you're an arcane caster and you're stacking a lot of arcane skill damage everywhere. You can see the total amount that you have in this one spot. Next, we have ignore arcane resistance, ignore cold resistance, ignore fire resistance, ignore poison resistance, and ignore lightning resistance. This is directly an ignore. So if a monster has 200% ignore arcane resistance and you're ignoring 100% of that, that monster now has 0 arcane resistance. If that monster has 200% arcane resistance and you're ignoring 50% of it, he has 100% arcane resistance. This means that once you hit 100% ignore resistance of whatever damage type that you're doing, you do not need it anymore. It is doing nothing. Next, we have our maximum life, our maximum mana, our life replenish. This is how much life that you replenish per second. Our mana replenish, how much mana we replenish per second. Our life stolen per hit, this is life leech for melee whenever you are striking an enemy, or for ranged attacks whenever they're striking an enemy. Same thing for mana stolen per hit, it's how much mana you replenish whenever you strike an enemy with an attack. Increased cooldown recovery rate, this increases the cooldown of skills. Some skills in the game do have cooldowns. Life after each kill is how much life you will instantly gain when killing an enemy. Same thing for mana on kill, it's how much mana you will instantly replenish when killing an enemy. Increased experience gain, just increases the amount of experience that you get from killing monsters. Magic Find increases your chances of finding magic items. Mercenaries Magic Find is also added to player Magic Find on kills. We do have a full section going over Magic Find and talking about how this works, so be sure to check for Magic Find Explained in the timestamps. Extra gold from kills, this just increases the amount of gold that you get from monsters on kill. This stat does not work on mercenaries. Poison length reduced, this lowers how long you're poisoned. Light radius affects your visibility range and base movement speed scaling. This makes it so that if you're in a dark area, it's much more lit up if you have a bunch of light radius. I haven't messed with the base movement speed scaling that you get from light radius, nor do I know how much it's affected by light radius, but I have asked around and it seems generally it's not worth investing in currently. Merchant prices shows how much of a discount you get from merchants. Chance to block attacks is your ability to block incoming attacks and projectiles. This goes up to 75%. Defense lowers the chance of enemies hitting you with physical attacks or projectiles. Very important stat, if you're getting hit a lot by physical attacks or projectiles, get more defense, you will feel much more tanky. Physical damage reduction reduces the amount of physical damage that you take, as well as magic damage reduction reduces the amount of magic damage such as cold, fire, lightning, poison, or arcane damage. Damage reduced is a flat amount of damage from every source. This stat is additive and does not scale from anything. This is also before all of your resistances or any other mitigations. Next, we have all of our characters' resistances: arcane, cold, fire, poison, and lightning. These go up to 75% as the cap, but there are ways of increasing this to higher amounts. Mining shows our current mining skill level, and Jewelcrafting does show our current Jewelcrafting skill level. We do have guides for both of these. Be sure to check out the Mining Explained or the Jewelcrafting Explained in the timestamps. Break is not on the character sheet, but it is a very important stat to talk about. Inflicting a monster with break increases their damage taken from all sources of the inflicted break type by the break value of the skill inflicting break. I know that was a lot of breaks, but I ran out of ways to word this one. Basically, the way that this works is if you have a skill that can inflict break, so charge naturally cannot. However, with the new sub-skill trees, we can go in here and actually add in some arcane break. So we're going to start with just 10% arcane break here. Now, when I run into an enemy, I will always inflict arcane break. This monster will now take 10% increased damage from all sources of arcane damage. Increasing this amount makes that monster take increased damage from all sources of arcane damage. So now we have 50% arcane break to not only our own skills, but anybody in our party. This is a very important more damage multiplier, especially if you're having trouble on bosses and want to scale up your damage to crazy numbers to just delete bosses. You're going to need a source of break. As a side note, break does not stack. It does not stack with your party members. It does not stack with your other skills. You can only inflict one source of break. If it ends up being a higher value than maybe a different skill, then you can overwrite the current source of break. However, you cannot stack them. Items are essential to your success in Hero Siege by shaping your character's abilities and effectiveness in battle. You can equip items by accessing your inventory. This can be found on the bottom left on your action bar, clicking this icon, or hitting the corresponding hotkey. Different slots in your character correspond to different item types. So you have weapons, helmet, amulet, chest, offhand or shield, gloves, ring, belt, and another ring, and boots. You also have a charm inventory on the right here. To equip an item, simply left click it and drag it to its corresponding location. Every item has its own set of stats, which can range from damage, speed, defense, and special effects. These stats will influence your character in different ways. For example, a weapon with high damage will increase your attack power, while an armor with high defense will reduce your chance of being hit by projectiles and attacks. Items have both a rarity role and a tier role. The current item rarities are normal, superior, rare, mythic, satanic, heroic, unholy, and angelic. These different rarities are color coded by background, as well as they have their own separate ground label colors. Common items generally have one stat. So you can see on this item, it has just 7 energy. That's the only stat added to this item. Superiors will have 1 to 2, rares will have 2 to 3, and mythics will have 4 to 5. This means that the total number of affixes on an item will determine its rarity up to mythic. Satanic items and higher are specific unique items that always have the same affix rolls, but will vary on the affix values. For example, these two Satanics are exactly the same. However, they have different rolled values. So this one has 30% increased movement speed, 8% life stolen per hit, versus this one's 24% movement speed with 10% life stolen per hit, as well as you can see their roll ranges. You can find a full list of all Satanic, Heroic, Unholy, and Angelic items in the in-game journal. An item's rarity can be found at the top of the item next to its base type. As mentioned earlier, items also have a tier. You can see an item's tier by hovering over it and checking the bottom right corner. The current item tiers are D tier, C tier, B tier, A tier, S tier, and SS tier. On weapons, the tier dictates the base damage of that weapon, so the higher the tier, the higher the base damage will be, making them overall better for damage output. The same idea applies to armors. The higher the tier, the more base defense that item will have, which ultimately just gives you more defense. An item's rarity does not directly correlate to its tier. So for example, on common through mythic items, these can be D to S tier. However, heroic or higher items will always be SS tier. Here's a chart I created to help visually see which item rarities can roll certain tiers. You do not need to memorize this chart. I'm just a visual learner, so I know some of you might appreciate this. In the bottom left corner is the item's level requirement. Level requirement is affected by a few different factors. First, an item's tier. The lower the tier, the lower the level requirement. Next, affixes on items have tiers as well. The higher the rolls or tiers of affixes on an item, the higher level required to wear it. There is a bit of internal coding that prevents you from getting high tier affixes on low tier items, making it impossible to wear, but in some cases you may run across an item that requires 10 to 15 levels above yours. Let's review the tooltip of an armor piece and a weapon to ensure you understand how to read an item. Here's our first item. At the very top, you can see the item's name. It's a Vampire Bone Gloves of Unity, Purge, High Sorcery, Spell Power, Quick Spell. It's a very long name. However, these are all the different affixes on this item as well as its base type. So whenever this item drops on the ground, you're going to see that really long sentence. It's actually telling you what's on the item on the ground if you know the affix names. Just below that, we have the item rarity as well as its base type. Next, we see the item's defense, as well as to the right, we can see the base defense roll range. So if I were to drop this exact same item again, it could roll maybe a little bit higher defense. It could get 37 or 38 on it.
which does matter whenever it comes to things like enhanced defense, scaling this to be a much higher number. The next 5 lines are the affixes that rolled on this item. So we have faster cast rate, attributes, magic skill damage, intelligence, and poison length reduced. These are completely random. I have no control of what rolled on this item when it dropped. On these affixes, you can see the roll ranges in yellow to the right. And again, these affixes do have names, and those names correlate to the item's name whenever you see it on the ground on its ground label. In the bottom left, you can see the level requirement for the item, and in the bottom right, you can always see an item's tier. Next, we're going to look at a heroic item. As mentioned before, heroic items do have set affixes whenever they drop. However, the roll ranges within those attributes changes based on each drop. So starting at the top, the name of this item is Lucy's Day. It will always be Lucy's Day. That's what this item is called as a heroic item. Below that, we can see again that it is a heroic mace. This item does have 3 sockets, so this will tell you what is in those 3 sockets, if maybe it was runes, gems. Below that, we have the attack damage of this item. It's showing 1,087. Just to the right of that, you see the base attack damage of the item was 111, and it had a roll range between 105 and 120. So the reason that the attack damage is 1,087 is because this item has a ton of enhanced damage. We can see that just a little bit lower here. It has 879 enhanced damage. That is a local modifier. It is beefing up the attack damage of the weapon itself. Next is the attacks per second is 1.5. Again, this is being affected by attack speed on the item. Attack speed on weapons is always a local mod, giving the weapon directly more attacks per second. If an item were to have procs on it, it would show in this red or orange color. Again, here is our enhanced damage roll. This directly affects the attack damage of the weapon as it is a local mod. Items can drop with +2 skills. This one is all skills. More specifically, items in general can drop +2 specific element types. However, all skills is generally the best. Again, you can see the 50% increased attack speed. This is affecting the attacks per second of the weapon directly as it is a local mod. The next 5 mods, the increased critical strike damage, ignore target defense, chance for open wounds, the extra damage to bleeding monsters, and the 50 strength are all just set affixes that roll on the item. Below that, we have attacks can hit multiple enemies. This is an auto mod for any 2-handed weapon. Every 2-handed weapon in Hero Siege has splash. Next, we see that this item is given 3 sockets. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe is simply just a funny quote that they add to the item. Because this item has the throw proc on it, hitting Alt will give you additional information about this proc. In the bottom left, we can see that the base type of the item is a mace and that it requires level 100. And in the bottom right, we can see that this is a 2-handed weapon and has an SS tier. Charms are items that enhance your character's abilities and attributes. These special items offer various benefits like boosting stats or providing unique effects. Just like regular items, charms have a rarity and a tier roll. However, they cannot roll common and have less total affixes in each rarity. For more information on how item rarity and tiers work, look for item basics in the timestamps. The amount of affixes is determined by the size of the charm. So for example, small charms can only get 2 affixes even as a mythic. I created a chart showing each charm size and how many affixes can roll on that size. Satanic, heroic, unholy, and angelic charms will always drop with predetermined affixes. You can find a list of all of these charms in the game's journal. As mentioned a moment ago, charms can come in different sizes and cannot be altered. The different sizes are 1x1, 1x2, 1x3, 2x1, 2x2, and there is a 3x3, but it's an angelic meme. Satanic, heroic, unholy, and angelic charms will always drop with a predetermined size. You cannot change them. So for example, if you drop a pumpkin that's an angelic, it will always be a 2x2. To equip a charm, simply open your character's inventory by going to the action bar in the bottom left and selecting either the inventory sword or the corresponding hotkey. Left click the charm you're looking to use and simply fit it inside the inventory located to the right of your character's main inventory. The charm must fit in these slots without hitting other charms. Choosing the right charms is crucial for optimizing your character's build. Depending on your playstyle and the challenges that you're facing, you might want to focus on charms that increase your survivability, damage, or utility. To maximize your gameplay and keep your character in top shape, knowing how to use potions effectively is key. Let's talk about some different types of potions you'll encounter. Potions come in different varieties, each offering specific effects. There are 3 basic non-satanic potions. The first is a health potion used to restore your character's health. Second is a mana potion used to restore your character's mana. And third is a rejuvenation potion that restores both life and mana. These potions are instant restoration and have no cooldown. You'll find them in different tiers as you level up, and they are very common. There are also satanic and heroic flasks that offer different buffs and effects.
These potions have a short duration and unlimited use, but have a cooldown. Let me give you an example. Empty Bottle of Vodka grants additional skills during its effect. Upon activating this potion, you can see its duration in the top left next to your character's portrait. Your potion will turn gray and go on cooldown, showing you the time remaining before it's ready to be used again. Satanic and Heroic potions also have a roll range between 1 and 5, with 5 being the highest. The higher the roll, the more potent this effect becomes. You can equip a potion simply by opening your inventory with a hotkey or clicking on the sword icon in the bottom left on your action bar. Find the potion you want to equip, left click it, and drag it onto the desired belt slot. Each belt slot has a hotkey attached to it for activation. These can be changed in the options menu. Potions are stored in the potions tab of your inventory. While here, you'll also see 2 options, autofill belt and used all slots. Autofill belt will auto replace empty potion slots with a new potion on use, so you don't have to manually refill during gameplay. The use all slots option will use all 4 potion slots when any potion hotkey is activated. Now that you have a basic understanding of items, let's talk about loot filters. Loot filters in Hero Siege are tools or settings that allow players to control and customize the types of items that they want to see. To access the loot filter, simply press escape, hit options, gameplay, and loot filter. I know there's a ton of options here, but the most important thing to remember is that this top part here is where you hide items based on their tier or rarity. So if I want to turn off D tier helmets below Mythic, I would simply go to Helmets. Here's the different tiers. We'll find D tier here and hit Customize. And from here, we can turn off any rarity. So I'm going to click on Show for Rare, Superior, and Common. This will turn them off. Now understand that the entire loot filter system reads top down. So say I only want to see S tier helmets that are socketed. Again, we would go to helmets. Here's my S tier. If I want to show only socketed, I can click here and that will work just fine. However, if I uncheck show, this will make it so that I don't see any S tier helmets at all. The reason for this, again, because it reads top down. Because we turned off the ability to show S tier helmets, this will no longer apply. This same principle is the same throughout the entire loot filter system. If you ever uncheck show, regardless of any other option that you select here, it's not going to show it. If this system is a bit too intimidating for you, there are some filter presets located on the front page here under filter settings. You can hover over them for a description, then just left click and hit confirm to apply them. Next, we have the highlight filter, and I want you guys to listen closely to me on this one. The only function of the highlight filter is to change an item's ground label color and add a beam to it if said item has one affix that you selected, regardless of the affix's roll range. What this means is that if I go to, say, weapons, highlight filter, and I want to add intelligence on weapon, I want to find that on my weapons. Any weapon that drops, whether it has 1 intelligence or 100 intelligence, will highlight regardless of any other stats on that item. Highlight filters will not hide any loot. However, highlight filters also do not supersede a loot filter. Again, if this sounds a little bit too intimidating to you, next to the highlight filter settings are available presets based on your archetype and if you're an attacker or a caster. If you aren't sure on this, check out Skills Explained in the timestamps to help you distinguish what type of damage your skills are and if you're an attacker or a caster. For those of you that do kind of understand what's going on here, I'm going to show you guys how to create a starter highlight filter for any class in 30 seconds as long as you know your archetype. Again, if this is too advanced for you, simply just use the presets. Okay, first thing we're going to do is hit reset on both of these just to make sure we're good and clear. I'm going to go to helmet under highlight filter. Because I know that I'm arcane, the first thing I'm going to do is scroll down to where the all skills is. Based on what archetype you are, this is going to change. I'm arcane. If you are cold, fire, lightning, poison, summons, whichever one of these you are going to select. The same applies for the additive damages. I know that I'm arcane, so I'm going to select additive arcane skill damage. Again, based on your archetype, pick the one that you are. And then the third time, we're doing the same thing. I am an arcane caster, so I'm going to say arcane skill damage. You select the one that you are. And then one last time, you have ignore resistance. You're going to select the one that you are. That's it. That is the base of any highlight filter for any character. Now, because I know that I'm a caster, I could take things like magic skill damage, faster cast rate. Very early on for any character, doesn't matter if you're an attacker, caster, I like to take mana on kill and life on kill. Just helps sustain all of our juice very easily. Then I'm going to hit apply to all. That's done. Next, we're going to go to just charms under highlight. And on our charms, we're going to select all of the resistances. We're going to select life percent and life. These are so damn strong. I don't see enough people taking life and life percent. On my Viking playthrough, I had 5,000 life at level 50, as well as enhanced defense. Enhanced defense on charms is a global modifier. So if you get, say, 50% enhanced defense, that's going to literally increase your character's defense by 50%. It's very strong for leveling. And then this part's optional. I like to go into boots and turn on phasing. You can sometimes find phasing boots for early Anubis. It's really nice. As well as under our armors, we can turn things on like movement speed. Shields, we can also turn on things like movement speed. And then on weapons, we can turn on projectile speed. And belts, we can turn on projectile speed. And that's it. That's what I like to do. That's pretty much what I do every single time whenever I make a filter. I've got it down to a point now. I can do it in under 30 seconds. If you want a little bit of practice doing this, just make a character at level 1, go through it really fast, see how long it takes you to put a filter together, and go. Do that a few times. I promise you'll be like, oh, okay, this actually is super easy. Runes are small stones inscribed with glyphs that can be inserted into socketed items, adding additional affix properties shown on the rune. Let's review a rune's tooltip. At the top, you see the rune's name. This is a key rune. In blue, you can see the affix that it will add to an item. In the bottom left is the level requirement for this rune. And in the bottom right, we have the tier of the rune. The higher the tier, the more rare the rune is. Runes are stored in the rune tab of your inventory. They can be slotted into any item with sockets, adding its affix regardless of the item type. Runes are broken down into 3 categories: low, mid, and high. Low runes are very common. You will start dropping tons of them in normal. Mid runes are a bit more rare, but they're not too hard to find. And high runes are the rarest of the runes, only found in hell, and have the most value. Runes can be found as drops from enemies or chests throughout the game. Some runes can also be purchased from in-game merchants. Using the crafting cube, you can upgrade runes through these recipes. This generally just requires a few of the same rune, as well as some of the higher runes you're going to need a gem for. You can also downgrade a rune in the prospecting station. Simply click on the prospecting station, drag your rune into the window, and hit prospect. This will lower its tier by 1 each time you hit prospect. Timestamped in the description is a crafting explained and prospecting explained if you need additional info. Rune words are specific combinations of runes that when applied to common items, they gain powerful enhancements. Here's an example of a very popular chest rune word called Shroud of Enigma. It's a 3-socketed rune word that uses jaw, uth, and burr. But wait, when I hover over the runes, they only have 1 property each. So how does it go from 3 properties to 13? Because we inserted the runes jaw, uth, and burr in a white or common chess piece in a specific order, the game is coded to create this specific rune word no matter what. It's really that simple. There are 3 rules to rune words that you must always follow. The first is that the base that you socket runes into must be common quality. It cannot be any other rarity. It cannot be magic, rare, mythic, satanic, heroic, unholy, angelic. They do not work. It has to be white or gray. Second, the base has to have the exact amount of sockets as the rune word. If the rune word uses 2 runes and you put them in an item that has 3 sockets, it is not going to work. And third, you must put the runes in the correct order. The correct order to any rune word is actually listed in the game's journal. You can come in here and find any rune word that you're interested in. So here we'll look at Shroud of Enigma. It tells me that it can be made on a body armor and that the order is jaw, uth, and burr. These commas will separate each of the runes. So let's take a look at a few more of these. Here we have Arcanum. We can see that this uses Sir, Burr, Gol, Sol, Ist, and Lum. This rune word can be made in either a bow or a gun, and either of those can be one-handed or two-handed. Next we have Atonement. This is Vex, Zo, Burr, Jaw, Ko. It can be made in a sword, axe, polearm, mace, bow, gun, or a chainsaw, and they can be one-handed or two-handed. So the journal will tell you every item type the rune word works on, and if it's available on a one-hander and a two-hander, or just a one-hander or a two-hander, as well as the level requirement of the item when it's on an S tier base. And this is the basic information that you need in order to create rune words. But that's not all there is to rune words. Let me ask you, what's the minimum level you need to be in order to wear a shadow? Go ahead, I'll wait. If you said 52, you're wrong. The answer is level 17. If you don't understand why, stay with me. Rune words, as you know, are specific combinations of runes slapped into a white or gray item. If you aren't familiar with this, check out the Runewords Explained section in the timestamps. This means that before creating the rune word, the base itself had a level requirement, and so do the runes. When we look at Shroud of Enigma, we see that it uses a jaw, uth, and a burr rune. These runes require level 65, 15, and 63. If we put these runes in a base that requires level 26, it's going to change its level requirement to 65 because that's what the rune is requiring. But ultimately, the key to remember here is whenever you're creating rune word, there is no base restriction. You can use any tier base to make the rune word on. And check the level requirement of the runes that are being used. Another extremely important aspect to rune words is crafting on bases that already have affixes. Why? Because rune words inherit any affixes on the base in the final rune word. So here you can see that this base has 252 enhanced defense and 17 lightning resistance. If I were to make a Shroud of Enigma in this, it would gain those additional modifiers. Here's a direct example of this. You can see that on my Enigma, I have +7 to all skills, but in the journal, it only shows it goes up to 3 skills. The reason for this is because my base has +5 to all skills. So what if you find a base that doesn't have any sockets on it? You can use the crafting cube to roll sockets 1 time. It requires 2 hell runes and 1 perfect gem. Simply double click and pray. Okay, dude. I'm doing this bullshit again. Okay. There is no way to influence the results. If you didn't get your desired sockets, you'll have to find another base and try again. The same rule applies to an item that already dropped the sockets. The game isn't giving you just a one-time roll sockets. It's allowing you to roll sockets 1 time because the item doesn't have sockets yet. Rune words are a very vital part of gearing a character from early game to end game. With these tips, hopefully it'll help you push your characters to the next limit. Relics are special items that provide bonuses to your character. They're essentially powerful rare artifacts that can greatly enhance your hero's abilities and stats. Relics can also come with unique effects or procs that can dramatically change how you play the game at certain stages. For example, procs from Rocket Barrage can help for demolishing early leveling. Relics are shown on your inventory screen. Simply click on the sword icon in your action bar or hit the corresponding hotkey. In the middle of your inventory screen, you'll have 4 slots. These are your relics. Relics can be leveled up to level 10, giving additional stats for each level. The way that you level up a relic is you simply just find the same relic again. Picking up the same relic will automatically increase the level of your current relic. You have an additional chance to find a relic you're currently using, increasing based on the health difficulty that you're in. In Hell 5, this is an 8% chance. This means that if you're chasing a particular relic, you need to delete relics that you don't plan on using, as they are nerfing your chances of finding the one that you want. Relics can be found in various ways, such as defeating bosses, completing specific challenges, or finding them in loot chests. One of the best ways to farm relics is during a Satanic Zone that gives monsters a chance to drop random relics. If it's not a Satanic Hour, the dungeon in Masarathim Desert is my preferred choice for farming relics, as it has a lot of chests and shrines. If you're unfamiliar with Satanic Zones, be sure to check out Satanic Zones Explained in the timestamps. Some relics might not work well with certain classes or abilities, so strategizing which relics to use can be crucial for maximizing your effectiveness. A full list with descriptions and values can be found at this link. Weapon augments add a variety of effects to your attacks and spells and are crafted directly onto a weapon using special emblems. However, due to the changes coming in Season 5 related to angelic keys and augments, it's unclear if the current weapon augment system is going to change, so I won't be covering weapon augments in this video. I will be updating this video before Season 5 starts, so I will have a clear answer as to whether that's changing or not. Until then, you can find information on the current weapon augment system on the official Hero Siege Discord. Mercenaries are AI-controlled companions that assist the player in combat. They serve as useful allies in both single-player and multiplayer modes by helping to take down enemies, absorb damage, or apply crowd control effects. Mercenaries come with their own skill tree, gaining 1 point for each character level that you are. To access their skill tree, simply click on the plus sign in the bottom left on your action bar, or press the corresponding hotkey. Then click on Mercenary in the top right. There are currently 3 different mercenaries for hire. The first one is available in Act 1 Town at the NPC Gar Nor. He's a sword and board mercenary. Here's an example of a skill tree that I would use. I would just go 1 point into everything here. This gives him the most amount of skills. And then from there, I like to go increased health regeneration max. I like to max his dodge chance, max his damage reduction from all sources. And then you can either go for life per hit or you can go for more armor. Second is available in Act 3 Town at the NPC Kalan. This mercenary is an archer bow girl. And here's an example of a tree that I would use on her. We go 1 point into everything. Heads up is showing 5 points just because she already has some gear on. Then we put max points into rapid fire to give her the most attack speed, max points into life per hit, and the rest of your 45 points you can do whatever you want with, because honestly, The rest of her skills don't really do anything. And our last mercenary is a Magister available in Act 6 town at the NPC Sister Mary. She's an arcane caster. Here's an example of a skill tree I would use. We just go 1 point into everything here. The first one we max points into is Water Protection. This is actually a pretty good shield that she will put over you. Next, we go for maximum cooldown reduction so we can try to get her to use this more often. Then I will blast into Mana Replenish. And then for our last 26 points, you can put them wherever because they don't really do anything. Mercenaries also have gear slots. If you open your inventory, up here on the right, you'll see the Mercenary button. Go ahead and click on that. And now you can start putting gear on your Mercenary. Each Merc has a main hand, an offhand, a chest, and a helmet. The last little tip about Mercenaries is that Magic Find from Mercenaries is applied to the player on kills. The crafting station is a crucial part of Hero Siege that allows you to enhance your equipment or create powerful items. It's where you can refine, upgrade, and transform items to make your character even stronger or more versatile. The crafting station is found in Act 1 town. Simply walk up to it and interact with it to open the crafting interface. The first is a list of recipes and crafting options. Each recipe requires specific materials. Clicking each recipe shows you a list of materials that you need. From here, you can either place the items in the cube yourself, or you can just double click on the crafting recipe to craft the item. As a side note, some of these aren't supported for the double click function yet. If you double click it and it doesn't work, try adding them manually. This red box is an area where you cannot put any items in. If you're trying to do a crafting recipe and you have some items in here, it's not going to work. Let's go through each crafting recipe, talking about what each makes, as well as how you acquire the materials. Starting at the top here, we do have some different potions. These just require a lower tier potion to craft a higher tier potion. Satanic Dice isn't a crafting recipe in particular. This is just where you would actually use the Satanic Dice to reroll an item's affixes. Next, we have caster, melee, and ranged weapon augments, as well as where you would upgrade the level of the augment. So once you have your actual emblems, you would put it in here with the item, hit the craft button, and it'll throw a random augment on, as well as once you get your deviled and powered emblems, you would throw it in here with that and it would upgrade the level of the augment. Tinker's toolkits allow you to re-roll an item. So if you're trying to maybe hit a particular affix on an item, you could use this to try to re-roll it. Understand that this does re-roll the rarity as well. So you could make an item that's common and you could turn it into a rare. And this just requires some different mining materials. A Soul of Hatred is how you get into Uber Gabriel. This requires 3 souls from Uber Damien, Reaper, and Sung Lee. Again, talking about weapon augments, we have the Mage Emblem, the Warrior Emblem, the Ranger Emblem, and the Deviled Empowered Emblem. These 3 are what are going to allow you to add a weapon augment onto your weapon. So you'll get all the materials for these to craft the emblems and then use this to actually craft the weapon augment on. Same goes for the Devil Empowered Emblem. You would get all these materials in order to craft the emblem so that then you could then use the weapon augment level to increase the level of the augment that you do apply. Next, we have the Arcs Walker set. This is a leveling set that's actually really nice, especially if you're playing an SSF and you don't have anybody to power level you. These do require some harder to get mining materials as well as some heroic dust and an enchanted sigil. Next, we have reroll affixes. This is the Tinkerer's Toolkit. So once you get one, you put this in here with a non-unique item and you can reroll a item. Next, we have empty sockets. If you make a rune word, you're not satisfied with it, or you accidentally put a rune in that you didn't mean to, you can use the empty sockets recipe. It is 2 souls and 1 perfect gem, and it'll empty those sockets for you. Next, we have reroll sockets. If you find a white item on the ground that you want to use for a rune word, but it doesn't have any sockets on it, you can use this recipe to throw sockets on the item and pray. It's just 2 hells and 1 perfect gem. Ruby keys can be found anywhere in the game, but you can also craft them. It does take 1 angelic key, so I'm not really sure how worth that is, as well as some additional mining materials. Key of Terror is how you get into Uber Damien. It just requires 1 of each of these souls from all the act bosses all the way up to Satan in Act 6. These are not hard to get. Much easier to get these if you're playing in a party of 4, as each person can just go to a different boss and call each other in. Next, we have the Edible Paz logo. This is how you get into Sheeponia. It takes Jesse's Bong, the Sheep Pelt, and Otto's Rat. These next 3, for some reason, don't have names, but these are unstable Rift Dust. Getting 5 of any of these will allow you to craft a random Satanic Dust, with the greater ones being the best chance for you getting a heroic dust. And then on the lines of the Satanic Dust, here's where all of your Satanic Dust and the Purified Dust recipes are. Then below that, we have all of our rune upgrades. Finding 3 of any particular rune allows you to upgrade them. And then as you scroll down here, you see that The mid runes will take a gem and high runes will take a gem as well. Then you have all your recipes for upgrading gems if you wanted to make pristine amethysts or emeralds or whatever it may be. All that is found in here as well. And lastly, if you're mining and you're trying to make a jewel or a gem from your mining materials, all of that stuff is located here at the bottom to be able to do that with. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but they all will take mining materials that you get from prospecting. Besides these four, will take a little bit extra juice. You do need an enchanted sigil. You can buy enchanted sigils from Torstein in Act 1. Mining is a gameplay mechanic that allows players to gather resources by digging through the environment. This feature adds an additional layer to the game, offering players the opportunity to collect materials that can be used for crafting, upgrading, or trading. Here's how mining works. Throughout the game world, you'll encounter various mining nodes or ore deposits. They have an icon on your mini-map or the overlay map. By interacting with these nodes, you can start the mining process. To break a node, it requires you to fit a shrinking circle in a bolded circle. Upon completion, ore will pop out in which you can collect, or if you have a companion active, they will slurp it up for you. For each ore you collect, you will gain 1 experience towards your mining level. There are currently 6 types of veins: copper, iron, gold, ruby, jade, and terrethium. Each type requires a minimum mining level to extract ore. Here's a chart to show you each vein type and their current mining level requirement. My favorite area to farm ore is either Corrupted Cave or Helheim. Both of them are in Act 8. Now that we've collected some ore, we can refine it through the prospecting station for a chance at materials to craft with. The prospect station is located in Act 1 town, north of the target dummies. To use, simply just drop your ore in and hit prospect. Each ore type has a chance at different materials. All of the byproducts of prospecting and material chances are listed in the game journal under mining. While we're in the prospect station, there is one more function to it that not a lot of players know about. Say I drop a jaw rune, but I'm like, crap, I really needed a burr rune to make my enigma. You can actually downgrade runes in the prospect station. Simply just pop it in here and hit prospect. It will drop your rune by 1 tier every time you hit prospect. So maybe you need to do it again because you needed a Sir rune. You can do this as many times as you want. So dropping the highest rune, Zed, is effectively dropping 1 of any rune in the game because you can drop it down to any rune in the game. Jewelcrafting is a feature that allows players to create gems and jewels, which can provide various bonuses and enhancements to your character. In order to jewelcraft, you'll need materials that you gain from prospecting ore. So what jewels can we make? Listed in the in-game journal under Jewelcrafting is every jewel available to craft and its respective crafting recipe. Jewels also have a minimum level requirement needed to execute these recipes, known as your Jewelcrafting skill level. The required level is listed within the crafting recipe next to the jewel. Increasing your Jewelcrafting level is done through prospecting ore. The higher the ore grade, the more experience you're going to receive towards your skill level. To execute a jewel craft, simply click on the crafting cube in Act 1. Then scroll down to the bottom and find your desired jewel. Double click and voila. In some cases, this may bug and may not complete the craft. You will need to manually add each item to the crafting window and click craft to finish the process. Make sure you dodge this red square here. You cannot put items in this. And as a quick side note, these last 4 recipes, the Chaos Gem, the Moonstone Gem, Angelic Gem, and the Elemental Gem, all require an enchanted sigil. You can get this from Torstein by simply buying it with gold. Hero levels are a feature that help players measure the progress and strength of their characters beyond reaching max level. After 100, your character will continue to gain experience from killing monsters. Each level grants 2 hero levels to spend in the hero level tree. To access the hero level tree, simply click on the plus sign on your action bar in the bottom left or hit the corresponding hotkey. At the top, click Hero Levels. You can zoom in and zoom out on this tree. You always start at the bottom, and to allocate points, you simply just left click. You must stay connected to the main path. I can't put points up here. There are 3 different types of nodes on the hero level tree. First is the magic node. This gives a +1 to a specific attribute and is used for traveling throughout the board. Second is a mythic node. These give a large increase to damage, survivability, or other special effects like additional charm slots. While hovering over a heroic node, it shows the range of nodes it affects for which your glyphs can take advantage of. Max hero level is 100, and it's quite a feat to accomplish this, as the experience needed is very extensive. Here's a chart showing the experience needed for each level. That's a total of 13,350,823,399 total experience to hit level 100. When allocating hero levels, be sure to hit the confirm button down here to confirm your choice. And if you make a mistake and want to reset, you can right click any of these nodes as long as they're connected to your main path. So I can't right click this node because it's connecting this to my main path. But I can right click these up here. If you do want to reset some nodes, again, just make sure that you're confirming. This also does cost a little bit of gold. It's very negligible in the long run. And if you want to reset your entire skill, you can do that with this button here. And lastly, there is an option to go full screen. Glyphs are special items that players can apply to their hero level tree to create additional skill enhancements or provide defensive and utility bonuses. Here's an example of a glyphs tooltip. Starting at the top is the name of the glyph, Glyph of the Magi Striker. Below that, we have a glyph attribute. Every glyph is given a attribute type. This one ends up being strength. More on that in just a second. Below that, we can see the glyphs level. Glyphs can be leveled up to level 7. I'll show you how shortly. Next, we have the quality. Glyphs drop with a quality or an effectiveness between 1 and 100%. The best way to explain this is whenever you press Alt, you can see the glyph's effect values. For this glyph, it's magic skill damage. This 1% magic skill damage is assuming that the glyph is at 100% effectiveness. Ours isn't. Ours is at 77. So when I place this glyph in the hero level tree and hit OK, you're going to see now that number has changed to 0.77 because again, the effectiveness or the quality of the roll on the glyph is 77% of 1%. Next, we have a big bar, 0 out of 8,000. That is the glyph's current XP bar. Now, to gain the effect of a glyph, it needs to be inserted in a heroic node on the hero level tree. Open your hero level tree by hitting the plus sign on the bottom left in your action bar or hitting the corresponding hotkey. From here, we'll hit hero levels at the top and look for a socketable heroic node. If you're not sure how the hero level tree works, we do have a section talking all about the hero levels. Be sure to check for that in the timestamps. Here's our heroic node. We're going to click it. It'll open up our inventory. Simply grab your glyph and drop it in this new UI window and hit OK. We have now successfully gained the effect that is on our glyph, which is it increases our magic skill damage based on our total attacks per second for each point that we have in strength. Now we can increase this further by putting points in strength within the range shown on this heroic node. So what's in gray here? So I have 1 strength, 2 strength, 3, 4, 5, 6. When I hit confirm, you can see this number has changed to 3.08, which is 0.77 times 7.
Wait, that math doesn't seem right.
Huh? What in the shit siege is this? What the Placing glyphs in areas with a matching attribute is key to getting the most out of your glyph's performance. Currently, challenge dungeons are the only way to find glyphs and the best way to level them. Speak to Lady Sonya at the entrance of any dungeon to unlock a challenge dungeon. The difficulty increases the chance to find glyphs, and the total experience granted from the Altar of Incarnation found at the end of each challenge dungeon. At the end of the dungeon will be the Altar of Incarnation. Placing a glyph in here and hitting upgrade will give it experience. The amount of experience that will be added to this glyph is at the bottom left. This is your glyph experience. This is gained through killing monsters in the challenge dungeon and carries over through different challenge dungeons. Another way to get glyph experience is actually in Wormholes. Killing monsters in Wormholes does grant experience, but it's a far less amount compared to a challenge dungeon. Let's go ahead and click on upgrade. You can see all of our juice was put into the glyph. We're now at 0 glyph experience and we have 4,917 XP. Here's a list of all the current glyphs and their effects. Dungeons are additional zones found in the world. They offer large static layouts and can have very high density. Dungeons also very often have a item drop bias for specific heroics that it's different than the drops that are in the main zone that they're located in. Dungeons are also a great way to farm experience and gear. There are several dungeons spread through the entire game. The easiest way to know if you found a dungeon is you'll see this icon on your minimap and Lady Sonya will be in front of it. Speaking to Lady Sonya outside of any dungeon will give you the option to use up to 12 keys to enter that dungeon's challenge mode. This scales up all rewards and monster difficulty for each tier and will reward the player with a dungeon chest at the end. After killing every monster in the challenge dungeon, at the very end you will be rewarded with a challenge dungeon chest, as well as the Altar of Incarnation appears at the end of a challenge dungeon. This allows you to gain glyph experience. Leaving a challenge dungeon, either through teleporting to town or dying and respawning, will forfeit the challenge dungeon run and you will no longer be able to access the dungeon chest, but you can still interact with the Altar of Incarnation. Here's a link to every dungeon in Hero Siege with their location and which key is needed to activate its challenge mode. Wormholes are a type of in-game content designed to challenge players with increasingly difficult levels. They function as randomly generated dungeon-like environments that scale in difficulty with each wormhole level becoming progressively harder. The concept is similar to Greater Rifts in Diablo 3, offering a highly competitive and repeatable experience for max level players. To access wormholes, talk to Dr. Tinkerdink in Act 1. You must be at least level 80 and be in hell difficulty. After selecting yes, a portal will open to a wormhole. Once inside, a timer begins. You must kill every monster in the zone to spawn the boss at the end. Fortunately, all wormholes will have full map pack, as well as you can see every single monster's location. Killing the boss at the end before the timer runs out completes the wormhole level, increasing the difficulty of the next wormhole. One of the main reasons people will push for wormholes is completing a level 100 wormhole rewards the player with seasonal cosmetics or other rewards at the end of the season. Good luck.
The Chaos Tower is a special feature designed to provide players with challenging gameplay and valuable rewards. The Chaos Tower is essentially a multi-floor dungeon where each floor presents increasingly difficult enemies and challenges. Chaos Towers are random, unique zones that spawn in the overworld. It has a base spawn chance based on the game's difficulty. You can increase its spawn chance by full clearing zones. This increases the spawn chance by 1% per zone cleared, but resetting or exiting resets this increase. Understand that when I say full clear, I mean every single monster in a zone needs to be killed. You cannot miss one. In the front of the Chaos Tower, you will see a door. This allows you to go into the Chaos Tower. A quest can be found in the main lobby to clear 10 Chaos Towers and to kill King Rakul. This quest is tied to each Hell difficulty, so you can be in Tower 3 in Hell 1 and Tower 7 in Hell 5. Chest rewards are available at the start before going into the main Chaos Tower. You can claim these rewards at any time. Talking to the Tower Master will allow you to either go into the Chaos Tower or claim your reward. Also in here, it'll show you where you're at in the sequence the tower is completed. After clicking Let Me In, simply walk up to Chaos Tower and hit Enter. Every Chaos Tower zone will have different spawn points around it where monsters will funnel out of. You simply just have to kill them. After a certain amount of monsters, you will get bosses that spawn. These bigger skulls indicate those bosses. And then at the end, you will always get rewards. Click on next floor to continue to the next floor. At the top here, you'll see the amount of enemies that are remaining, as well as what floor that you're currently on. After completing the 10th floor, this Chaos Tower will be completed, and that is one tower cleared towards your quest. Satanic Zones and Hero Siege are higher difficulty areas designed to offer more challenging gameplay with enhanced rewards. They offer tougher enemies, special mechanics, and higher quality loot through zone buffs and debuffs, making them a key part of the game's endgame content. Satanic Zones can be seen by a special visual above a zone on the world map and are on an hourly rotation. This changes which zone is affected and which buffs and debuffs are active. A Satanic Zone can have a mixture of any buff and debuff combination. If a Satanic Zone lands on a map that contains a dungeon, that dungeon will also be affected by the same modifiers. A full list of buffs and debuffs can be found at this link. You may encounter a black and red portal in your adventures. These are eternal battlefields. Walking over this portal will cause it to expand, spawning monsters. Killing monsters will drop an event-specific item called Battle Fragments. After a short time, the portal will return to its original position and become interactable. Clicking on this portal will give you the ability to spend 50 battle fragments to enter the Eternal Battlefields where Sung Lee resides. Eternal Battlefields have a minimap icon that looks like two swords crossed. Eternal Battlefields have an increased spawn chance based on the Hell sub difficulty. You may encounter a purple portal in your adventures. These are Shadow Realms. Clicking on the portal will teleport you into the Shadow Realm. Monsters killed in a Shadow Realm have a chance of dropping an event-specific item called a Dimensional Shard. Dimensional Shards also have an icon on the map. A stack of 10 shards can be used at a sheen to open the gate to Uber Reaper. Varus the Shady Merchant also hangs out in Shadow Realms. You can speak to him to buy... You may encounter a blue or purple portal randomly in zones titled Unstable Rift. These zones are an exact copy of the zone that you're currently in, but offer 50% experience and 200% magic find with a ton of extra mob density. If an Unstable Rift spawns in a Satanic Zone, the buffs and debuffs will apply to the rift. Unstable Rifts also have a mechanic-specific commodity called Unstable Dust. These come in 3 types: Lesser, Unstable, and Greater. Collecting 5 of one type gives 1 random Satanic Dust. The rarer the unstable dust, the higher the chances of hitting heroic or angelic dust when crafting. For more information on Satanic Dust, click on Satanic Dust in the timestamps. When going into an unstable rift, it oftentimes can be glitched. This will cause you to spawn into a random encounter ranging from a key dungeon to a Rift of Fortune or maybe even a Shadow Realm. This is a feature, not a bug. The Bifrost Realm is a unique zone found in Act 7 and can offer many outcomes with different rewards. If used correctly, the Bifrost is a powerful tool for target farming specific zones that generally have a high material cost or time investment. To access the Bifrost, you will need a Bifrost key. This is a random world drop and is not affected by Magic Find. Once acquired, make your way to the Astral Encampment in Act 7, continue to the top right, and plug your key into this pedestal. A bridge will open up to the top, allowing you to continue into the Bifrost. You cannot teleport out of the Bifrost, and leaving it will require you to use another key. Continue making your way north until you meet Heimdall. He's going to offer you 2 random locations that you normally would have to pay materials for, are extremely hard to find, or can only be accessed through the Bifrost. Here's a list of all the possible locations that Heimdall can give you in the Bifrost with their respective % chances of appearing. There are also timestamps available for each if you need additional information on what they are. Sheeponia is a reference to a secret or hidden area within the game. Sheeponia can be summoned by crafting an edible Paz logo in the crafting bench and consuming it. The items required for the craft are Jesse's Bong, the Sheep Pelt, Otto's Rat. This zone has a 20% bonus loot quantity per health sub difficulty. The Mist of Chaos is a unique zone that can be accessed through the Bifrost. This area is filled with fallen angel monsters, which have a chance to drop an angelic key and contains 5 random chaos shrines. Niflheim is a unique zone that can only be accessed through the Bifrost. This contains monsters that have an increased chance to drop runes. Asgard is a unique zone that can only be accessed through the Bifrost. This area contains 5 Asgard chests, which have 7,000% Magic Find and an additional 700% Magic Find per sub difficulty for a maximum of 9,800 Magic Find per chest. This area also contains the Asgard mining nodes. It does require 1,000 mining in order to extract anything out of these, and they can drop any type of ore. The Rift of Fortune is a unique zone that can only be accessed through the Bifrost. This area is filled with fallen angel monsters, which have a chance to drop an angelic key, as well as there's packs of goblins everywhere. Vanaheim is a unique zone that can only be accessed through the Bifrost. This area contains 2 Asgard chests, which have 7,000% Magic Find and an additional 700% per sub difficulty for a maximum of 9,800 Magic Find. The Prophet Luna also appears in this zone at the very top. She gives you a quest that will show you a glimpse into the future, revealing a random heroic that you're destined to drop. She's going to task you with killing a large amount of monsters. After completing this, it will spawn a portal on the monster's position, which will grant the player access to possessed Luna. I'm not going to go kill 62,000 enemies just to show this. Once inside Luna's area, killing possessed Luna grants you the foreseen heroic item and a random possessed Luna boss drop. A pro tip about this quest, if you don't like the reward that you were given, you can simply right-click this, hit this X right here, and it deletes the quest. This means that the next time you come into Vanaheim and talk to the Prophet Luna, she's going to give you a new quest, which will be a new heroic. Shrines are interactive objects that provide various temporary buffs, debuffs, or effects to players when activated. They are scattered throughout the game maps and can either be beneficial or detrimental, so players need to be cautious when using them. There are currently 5 different types of shrines. Here's an explanation of each one. The first is the Shrine of Life. This replenishes 50% of your life. Second is the Shrine of Mana. This gives you 50% of your mana back. Third, we have a Holy Shrine. This grants one of these random effects, either 10% experience gained, 15% attack speed, 15% movement speed, 10% attack damage, 20% Magic Find, plus to all skills, or 1 random relic. Next, we have the Devil Shrine, and this can grant a random effect that's either a positive or a negative. So for this, it's 25% experience, 35% attack speed, 20% movement speed, 35% attack damage, and 60% Magic Find. All of these can be negative effects with the same values, or you can also get a random relic. Next is the Reaper Shrine, and this will spawn random packs of monsters, either 8 Ancients, 8 Champions, or 4 Legions. And lastly, we have the Chaos Shrine. Also grants a random effect from one of the following: a Satanic between D and S tier, 3 random runes up to Jaw with an equal chance for any tier, 5 dimensional shards, 4 treasure goblins, 12 ancient monsters, a bit of gold, or 12 champions. Every shrine has an 8% chance to become a slot machine. This is literally a slot machine, and you will lose 99% of the time, just like all slot machines. Killing a monster with a Guardian of Hell affix will always open a portal to the Archdemon Plateau. This affix can only be found on ancient monsters with a very low chance. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of this, but once you're inside, you will fight 3 bosses, Satan, Damien, and Reaper. After defeating them, you'll gain access to 3 Archdemon chests. These chests have 100% increased loot modifier and 1000% magic find per sub difficulty, with a 5000% magic find being the max.
Very rarely you'll come across a traveling merchant. These NPCs will offer you satanics and runes in exchange for gold. Be careful not to overspend these merchants, as they do not take into account the market value on items. They also cannot spawn SS items. Satanic Dice is an interesting way to be able to re-roll the affix values on satanics, heroics, unholy items, or angelics. The way this works is certain affixes on this item have roll ranges in yellow. Using a Satanic Dice will change all of these. It completely re-rolls the item as if you just picked up a new one off of the ground. However, there is a caveat to this. There is a 33% chance that you will corrupt the item, rendering it practically useless. It will still be an item, but it'll be way less potent, and generally you're not going to use it anymore. To complete this crafting recipe, simply put the item in the crafting window. Make sure you have your Satanic Dice as well, and then just double click on the Satanic Dice. I unfortunately don't have one, so I can't do this, but it will re-roll that item. You'll know that it goes corrupted if at the top underneath its name, you'll see corrupted heroic. Satanic Dust is a crafting material used in the creation of a random satanic or greater item. Satanic Dust is obtained by dismantling satanic items. When players find a satanic item that they don't want or need, they can use the prospecting station to break it down into dust. You can then use this dust in the crafting station to create random satanic or greater items. The tier is defined by the dust used, with heroic dust needing an additional item called an enchanted sigil that we get from Torstein. Each recipe will require a certain amount of dust to be able to complete. Once you have your recipe, put it in the crafting bench, hit craft, and you will generate a random satanic or greater item. Magic Find, commonly abbreviated as MF, is a stat that increases the likelihood of finding higher quality loot from enemies and bosses. It won't increase the number of items dropped, but it will enhance the quality of items that do drop. Magic Find can be found as a stat on various pieces of equipment. These items provide a percentage increase to your overall Magic Find. Magic Find does have a soft cap. However, your Merc's Magic Find is added to yours whenever you kill monsters. While increasing your Magic Find can greatly help in obtaining better gear, balancing it with clear speed is very important to maintaining efficiency. Too much focus on Magic Find without enough damage can make it hard to kill enemies. Never sacrifice your clear speed for Magic Find. Paz has not revealed the exact formula to Magic Find, but I do have my own theory. I am going to discuss that in this next part, but remember, this part is completely speculation. Okay, so enemies have a drop slot depending on rarity. This means when you kill a monster, the game will roll whether it's actually going to drop an item based on the rarity of a monster that you killed. So an Act Boss will have more rolls for an item drop than maybe a white monster. So you kill a white monster and you succeed in dropping an item. The game now rolls for its tier from D to SS based on the formula that is affected by Magic Find. I can prove this because of Season 3. Now, if Magic Find only affected how rare the item is and had no effect on its tier, boxes at the end of dungeons wouldn't have shit out SS items, as the only difference between Season 3 key dungeon boxes and maybe Season 4 is the Satanic Zone quantity buff, which is an insignificant amount increase of items to roll tiers on compared to how many items the game rolls when actually killing monsters for extended periods of gameplay. So there's also crazy multiplicative MF bonuses on those chests. This example can be applied to chests from, say, Ruby Gardens, the Archdemon Plateau, Asgard, Vanaheim, as they aren't dropping an extreme large quantity of items, but a small amount with an extreme amount of Magic Find. Now that the game has given your item the SS tier, it rolls for a Satanic within the SS tier. This can still fail. You can still lose out on getting the item. If it succeeds, the game is rolling for a Heroic to Angelic based on predetermined drop rates for items. An example of this is Tyrell's has a 1 in 7.5 million drop rate. We know that. Elias has told us that. Every 100% Magic Find gives you 1 extra roll. So if you have 2200% Magic Find, your drop rate for any SS item is 23 and whatever the drop rate is. So for Tyraels, it would be 23 and 7.5 million chance to drop that item. As a side note here, different rarities of monsters have an item type bias for non-satanic and greater monsters. We do know that. For example, bosses have a bias to drop jewelry and charms. Target farming is a strategy where players focus their efforts on obtaining specific items or resources. The goal here is to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of farming by concentrating on particular objectives rather than random or general farming. Target farming is a fundamental part of Hero Siege, and it's very important to your success and progression. So how does target farming work in Hero Siege? Well, first, every item in Hero Siege that is not a boss item has a global drop chance, meaning you can drop any item in any zone from any monster unless that item is not specifically locked behind killing an uber boss. However, certain areas in the game have a bias towards certain items, giving them an increased chance to drop. The item catalog in the in-game journal shows which areas an item has increased drop chances in. Let's talk about each of these so you know exactly what they mean. There are 4 options of target farming that an item in the catalog may receive. The first is specific zones in an act. The item may say something like Act X Zone X through X. This directly means a specific act in specific zones. For example, Tectonic Grips is Act 5, Zones 1 through 5. This includes any unstable rifts and eternal battlefields, as well as if there's any Satanic Zones found in these zones that do not take you to a different base zone. However, the effect is not applied to dungeons attached to this zone. You may also see Act X Overworld. This just means any zone in that act. The wording just needs updated. Second, we have dungeon farming. An item may say Act X Dungeons. This means that any dungeon in a zone from a particular act will have a bias towards that item. For Tectonic Grips, that would be any dungeon in Act 5. A dungeon will always have Lady Sonya in front of it if you aren't sure if an area has a dungeon or not. Third, we have boss dungeon farming. Boss dungeons are the few zones before an act boss, the boss zone and the boss. So for Tectonic Grips, this would be the Act 5 boss, King Carp. I'll give you a quick example of this. So I'm going to go ahead and travel to Temple of Zamjo and make my way to the next zone, Temple of the Fish. This is the start of the boss dungeon. So this floor, the next floor, the next floor, and the boss room, and the boss himself are all part of the boss dungeon. Last is boss item farming. The item may just show a boss name underneath it. This means that the item can only drop from this particular boss and nowhere else in the game. If an item has no options below it, it cannot be targeted anywhere in the game. It is just a random global drop. So if you're looking for a specific item, be sure to check the journal to develop a game plan on acquiring that item. Monsters can spawn as different types, inheriting different modifiers from a pool. Each type of monster presents different challenges and can have unique resistances, weaknesses, and combat styles. Understanding these monster types help players strategize more effectively, especially in tougher difficulties. The different types of monsters are Champion, Ancient, Special, and Legion. Again, each of these types can inherit different modifiers that are randomly generated from a pool of modifiers for each specific one. For example, a Champion monster can spawn with the Fractal mod, which changes its damage type to cold. It has 25% reduced movement speed, and it takes 50% reduced damage. A full list of these modifiers can be found at this link. Bosses, however, have their own separate mechanics. For this video, I won't be detailing out all the boss mechanics as I really don't have the footage, and at the current moment, I don't have a way to get it. But as soon as I'm able to, I will be making a separate guide for this and adding it to this version at a later date. And that's all I've got for this one. I really hope this video is able to become a great foundation for new players to learn about this awesome game that I've really come to love over the years. This video has been by far my biggest project to date, and I'm really just so damn proud of myself. Yo, did you guys see? I learned how to zoom in. Thank you to everyone who's supporting me and this channel. I absolutely love all of you. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button as I am posting a ton of new content on Season 5 beta, as well as I have a lot of videos planned for the future. You can also check me out live at twitch.tv/Graxy_TV. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to leave it a like. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.